Hi everyone, welcome to the Positive Impact. So today's episode we have with us Ishan Jalil. Hi Ishan.
Hi Kavishan.
Yeah. So Ishan, just to start off with, this is what I see. Thomian, University of Colombo graduate, loving husband. This is me talking. But how do you see yourself? How do you define this person, Ishan Jalil?
First and foremost, thank you, Kavishan, for that very interesting question. Looks like you've already, put me on the hotspot. It's like this. I would say I'm someone who always turns challenges into opportunities, and I'm also someone who I would define myself as, a regular guy doing irregular things. So, so that's me. And I just want to kind of, throughout my life, from my birth and to my primary, secondary, and tertiary education, plus my employment opportunities and my marriage, all those things, did not come, like everything just, it was all a challenge. Whatever I did, it was all a challenge, and I am very happy that I overcame those challenges. So yeah, I'm someone who turns challenges into opportunities.
That's great. That's a great start. So is it possible for us to know those challenges that you've had during your school time or during your university time, or even now as a married man?
It's like this. When I was born, when my parents realized that I'm blind, they were in a state of shock. Like they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to, deal with me, how to handle me, right? And then they were like several people gave them several suggestions, in effect, telling them to kind of, put me into some kind of religious institution or put me into some kind of home or whatever institution for persons with disabilities. So, but with all those suggestions, my parents were brave enough to give me a very good education. So initially I went to President's College Maharagama. There I just stayed just for 1 year because that was like I couldn't cope with the normal way of education in that school, because in that school did not have like proper accommodation for persons with disabilities. And then I went on to study at School for the Blind, Rakmalana, up until my O levels. That is from grade 1 to O levels. There, it's a specialized system. Like they have braille and all other accessible formats for blind children to study. That of course was not very difficult, and of course from grade 4 onwards, I was always the first in class, right? And then I went to I was admitted to St. Thomas College to do my A levels, as you already know. Yes. That too was a very challenging circumstance, because when I came to St. Thomas's for the interview, I came with several other blind students from the blind school, because we were told that there's an interview process going on at St. Thomas's, and let's go and see. And so he just went and he faced the interview. I faced the interview, and then I was told that okay, Ishan, we'll let you know later. But the vibe I got was that okay, letting me know later is something which is almost like a no. Like I thought that I will not be admitted to college. So me and my dad, we were just like walking down the stairs, like so after facing the interview, we were just walking down the stairs, and we were like approaching the gate, and then someone just ran up to us and said, the warden wants to see us again, right? And then we just went, and then he said, Ishan, we are happy to take you in, but like, are you able to cope with, or are you able to deal with a situation where you have to study with all the other non-disabled students, all the other non-disabled children? So like I was like, yeah, why not? I'll take up the challenge, and I took up the challenge.
And
Yes, that's me at St. Thomas's. St. Thomas, I did economics, Greek and Roman civilization, and English literature. And the biggest challenge at St. Thomas's was the lack of books. Like for all those subjects, I did not have any, like braille books or accessible books for that matter. And
And how did you manage to get those materials? Was there anyone helpful with getting them down?
Of course. So like in the sense, like it's like the school was not able to get me all the books. It was quite quite a hard task. But then there were a few people, like say I still remember my economics teacher, Mrs. Janita Paris. She worked tirelessly to kind of make economics accessible for me, like even graphs. And because when I chose economics as a subject, even some people in college told me, Ishan, don't do economics, it's hard for you, there are so many diagrams, graphs, tables and all that, so how can you as a blind person do all these things? So I was like, I took up the challenge, and she was brave enough to, and she was like kind enough to make sure that I faced the challenge. So she made all those materials accessible, and also the school authorities also eventually, like they were very happy to make those materials accessible. They went to the blind school, got certain materials done in braille for economics, English literature, and Greek and Roman civilization. And also another challenge that I faced in school, basically it was like a challenge, like a blessing in disguise, I would say. My involvement in rowing, right? So I rowed for college, in the sense, once I went for this big match back in 2007, just to watch the Royal Thomian big match. And then this individual just walked up to me and he was like, "Hi Ishan, I am Ajit Gunawardana, I am the prefect of games for St. Thomas's." And he just gave an introduction, and he was like, "Ishan, would you like to join rowing?" And I didn't know what the hell, I didn't know what the hell that word meant, like I didn't know what rowing meant, seriously, right? And then I was like, okay, but then I never had this thing of saying no. Like even now, probably that's something that always drives me forward. Like, I never say never. So I'm like, okay, so if you can teach me rowing, and if you promise to not let me down, I'll join rowing, right? So and then sorry?
Not let me down and not let me drown.
Yes, most important. Yes, right. So and then I joined rowing. I joined the rowing crew, and then I went on to participate for the Royal Thomian Mini Regatta. And even during that time, so the challenge was, people were saying, "Ishan, how are you going to do rowing? That's not possible. You as a blind person, you can't do it, and you will actually some kind of harm will happen to you. You have to practice in Beira Lake and all that." And so I was kind of determined to prove myself. I was kind of determined to make I wanted to prove that the naysayers are wrong, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So what I did was I thought, yeah, I'll just prove myself, and then as I told you, I participated in the Royal Thomian Mini Regatta. And later on, I got to know that at that point, back in 2007, I was the first born blind person in the world to do competitive rowing. Right?
Wow.
And so after A levels, I went on to study at Columbia University. I did international relations as my subject. That's my area of specialty. So. I am actually the first blind person in Sri Lanka to do international relations in the English medium as well. Great. And so when I was in university, of course, I got involved in several extracurricular activities. I got involved in the road track movement and also like several other like university activities. And also I got involved in something called Leonard Cheshire Disability, which is out of university. That was something extracurricular, like that's a disability rights organization based in UK, So they had a project called Young Voices, which was a global project to get young persons with disabilities involved in making a positive change in their community. Right? So I became the president of Young Voices Sri Lanka. In which capacity I was able to travel to many countries. Like I traveled to the US, UK, and also India, Malaysia, Mexico, and also South Africa. So those countries I traveled to in my capacity as a member of Young Voices Sri Lanka. And so all this was happening during my university time, right? So the biggest challenge when I was going to university was again lack of books. Like I did international relations, so no materials, like no accessible materials was available for me in Sri Lanka. Like all the other students, non-disabled students, they were able to access online materials. Like they were able to access websites like JSTOR, which were available at that point. Like if you are inside the university premises, you can log into JSTOR and all these like academic websites, right? So so lack of books and lack of accessible material, that was a huge obstacle for me. So I had to depend on lecture notes, and anyway, international relations was something that I have been passionate about since small days, like from something, since time immemorial. I started to listen to BBC News. Those days I had this old radio. Yeah, all these like SW1, SW2 and all that was there, and then with all that, I was listening to the BBC News with all those, strange noises on the radio. But then, so yeah, I had like a passion for international relations from my small days. So that's why I wanted to do, this subject in university.
That's the thing.
And then so university, that was a huge challenge, but I overcame, and I graduated back in 2013. And then also, as I told you, I went to many foreign countries during my university, during my time at university. And even most of those trips that I went abroad, like those visits, I went on my own. Like people ask me how did you go and all that. So it was not as complicated as people thought at that point, because what happens is that I have to inform the airline that there's a disabled passenger coming, and then they take all the precautions. So there are people to guide me from members of ground staff to guide me from the airport gate to the aircraft, and then inside the aircraft there are people to take care, the air hostesses, whatever. And then once I'm at the location, once I'm at the destination, there are people, again, staff members to take care of me. So I'll have to just inform the airline that I'm a person with a disability and I need this kind of assistance, whatever. So yeah, that way I was able to navigate myself on my own, whenever I went to all these places. And then after that, of course, I kind of got into full-time activism. Activism in the sense, political activist and also youth activist, doing various projects and getting involved in various good causes. And then started working. Also, I worked in several places. I worked initially. I worked for something called International Foundation for Electoral Systems, a US-based INGO. That too was a very pleasant experience. And then also, I worked for another NGO called Sri Lanka Unites. So that's also one of the very few NGOs which has a very good ground presence in Sri Lanka. And also, recently I worked for an organization called Ashinsa as a consultant. So that's also working on children and youth with disabilities. But while all these, say from around 2010 onwards, I have been a motivational speaker, and talking to people about how to overcome challenges and how to be your best self. So that's something that I always kind of promote whenever I can. So yeah, like during all these situations, as and then of course you wanted me to tell about my marriage as well. So I got married back in 2020, that's last year, and that too was not a walk. Like we had challenges to overcome, but then because people were wondering, okay, I'm a person with a disability. How can I get married to someone who's non-disabled? And then even she got this pressure, to the effect that okay, it's not right for you to marry a person with a disability because you'll have to take care of that person your whole life and all that. But she took up the challenge, and we both knew that the path ahead was not very easy. But then we also knew that if we love each other, and if we can, if we trust each other, we can go ahead without any issue. So we are happily married, as you know. So yeah, with all that, life has been one big challenge. Almost all those situations, even in my work life, sometimes having accessibility to certain work related materials and whatever. So all those things were a challenge, but I am not someone who wants to kind of sit back and complain. That's something that I hate to do. So I always have this can do attitude, and I always look forward to taking up challenges so that I can always turn them into opportunities. So that's something that I wanted to highlight during this interview as well. So.
Definitely, that's a secret recipe to life, I guess.
Yes,
very
absolutely.
much, Ishan. That was very insightful and very inspiring to many of us, actually. And Ishan, now move on to your latest project. We see a new website coming up, www.ishanjalil.com, and a new mission, the man with the plan. What's this all about? What's this new Ishan Jalil is about to do?
Yes, so as I told you already, I have worked in several NGOs, several companies and all that. What I thought was, I'll start something on my own because I have learned so many positive lessons from those places, right? So what I thought was, why not, start something on my own so that I can get all those, I can condense all those positive lessons together, and put out a good product. Put out a good product that will serve all of humanity in general. Because my website, www.ishanjalil.com, which I launched on August 12th, which is actually International Youth Day. So every year, August 12th is International Youth Day, and I'm someone who, like right now I'm, 32, but then, even like say 15, 20 years down, I would still always work for young people because I believe that I'm, someone who's always young at heart, right? So, I started this website on International Youth Day because I want to kind of get young people and many other sectors of society involved in good causes, and also to kind of give them a positive message, especially during COVID and all these uncertain situations. Right? Now, as my website, in my website, I promote myself as a motivational speaker because now, of course, people can't afford to organize huge offline events, in huge conference halls and invite people to do motivational sessions, which is not practical, because of the COVID situation. But then, in the online space, so many things can be done, right? Like, there's Zoom, there's Microsoft Teams, there's Google Meet, there's all these other web applications, where I can kind of, do motivational sessions for people who are, going through lockdowns and, going through so many uncertainties in life, right? So because people are right now, like if I talk to about 10 people, about 6 to 7 of them would always say that they would come up with something negative, like they would not look at life in a positive way. They would always say, okay, COVID is there, all these bad situations are happening, and so it's like what I thought was, why not bring some positivity, bring some positive energy to the people around me. So yeah, I started my own website where I promote myself as a motivational speaker to corporates and also to any other organizations and communities and whatever. And also, as you already know, of course, I am a disability rights activist. Because of my disability, and I'm also involved in gender and youth activism as well. So what I thought was I'll start my website where I can promote all these causes and all these things that I do, like on one platform, right? Like using one platform. Yeah. So like if you visit the website, you will clearly see what are the services that I provide, and like if anyone who is watching this video at some point wants to contact me, you can always like on the website, all my details are there, so you can contact me for any if you need any consultations regarding regarding conduct, like if you want any kind of motivational sessions to be conducted, or if you want any consultations regarding gender, youth, and also persons with disabilities, you can always contact me. So that's why I thought I should launch this website. Yeah.
Definitely. So about the website again is www.ishanjalil.com, is it?
Yes.
Right. You very correctly said, don't look at the negatives. There are so many negatives in the world. Look at these negatives and find ways to convert them into positives. So that should be the goal in life as well. And I think you're doing it 200%. How we are doing things. So, and the other thing, to wrap this up, Ishan, what we see is a disability, what you call a differently able person. So that doesn't stop any person now. There are so many ways to motivate yourself and to get support. So from your story also, we see that about Braille, the limitations that you had with Braille materials, and then people coming and supporting you, your own the grit and the self-support that you had, the determination that you had to overcome these challenges. And then it's amazing to see that you were the first born blind person to get into rowing, and the first person in Sri Lanka to do international relations in English in Sri Lanka. That's very inspiring. And to take on the world, we see our Paralympians with world records this time.
Yes.
So that's very inspiring. We have come to that point where there's, as you very correctly said, never say never kind of attitude with everyone. So there are so many people in Sri Lanka, in the world, who think they are limited due to their disabilities and all these issues that they have. Sometimes the parents are shy to bring them out. Sometimes they don't have their self-esteem to come out. So what's the message that you want to give to the public?
There might be parents of persons with disabilities watching this video, right? So my parents like supported me immensely, and they still do. For my profession, from education to work to everything else, right? So my parents, especially my dad, Kavishan, you would have seen my dad, always, taking me to college and all that. So so all don't think of them as they people who are just they are to take all the welfare, like just beneficiaries, like don't think of them as people who are not empowered, right? So always make sure that you support them, even if you are a parent or anyone who, if you know of anyone who's a person with a disability. Yes, please support them in whatever way you can, in a way that actually empowers them. Right?
Exactly.
So now coming to the final message of this video, like what I want to say, you know, there's a very famous diplomat in the US and a statesman actually, Robert Kennedy. You know, he said something very interesting, you know, in one of his speeches, and I quote that amazing those amazing few lines, which actually inspires me to this day, and I'm pretty sure it will inspire many of you as well. So what he said was, and I quote, "There are those who look at things the way they are and ask why. I dream of things that never were and ask why not." Unquote. Right?
Amazing. Yeah.
So this quote goes on to say that it's very important to dream big, and also it's very important to turn your dreams into reality. And also, my message to all of you is, of course, life is a huge challenge. Turn challenges into opportunities, because you know, if you think of whatever is coming your way as obstacles, and you know, if you get stuck, then you are not going to go anywhere. You're not going to get to any place, right? So if you turn obstacles into challenges, you can transform challenges into opportunities. That's my message for all of you who are watching this video.
Great, great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ishan. Great. So we've come to the end of the show. Thank you very much for joining with us. So everyone who is watching this, please get in touch with Ishan on his website, www.ishanjalil.com. And Ishan, thank you very much for joining on our inaugural session. So keep inspiring. So you're a winner in life, and that with a very inspiring story. So wish you all the best with everything that you do in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Kavishan. Thank you so much.